They breathed fire in the west. They brought storms in the east. But in every corner of the ancient world, dragons ruled the skies. Distant memories of gigantic winged reptiles, fossilized dreams of monsters that haunted their waking lives. Or were they real? Did these legendary beasts once prowl our planet before dying out and leaving nothing behind but stories, statues, and scattered bones? It's me, and you're watching this channel. Join me today as we conduct an archaeological excavation of 5 dragon legends that shaped ancient civilizations. 5. The Lung Dragons of Imperial China. The Chinese dragon is one of the most recognizable motifs in world mythology. It appears in the earliest historical records from the Shang dynasty, 1600–1046 BCE, when rulers claimed to be descended from dragon ancestors. Later, during the Han dynasty, 206 BCE–220 CE, a cult of the dragon arose, possibly influenced by contact with nomadic horse cultures in the steppes to the north. During the following 3 kingdoms period, the cult reached its peak, particularly in the kingdom of Shuhan. After falling into decline during the Song dynasty, it experienced a brief revival during the Yuan dynasty under the Mongols. And it was in this context that the famous legend of the 9 sons of the dragon took shape, each son endowed with a unique set of skills. This figure would become the quintessential symbol of the Chinese Empire. According to legend, when the Yellow Emperor defeated the tyrant Qi Yu, his army was demoralized and on the verge of collapse. Just as all hope seemed lost, 9 magnificent dragons emerged from the river ocean and joined the fray. The Yellow Emperor rode atop the largest dragon, who became known as Chong, or the Heavenly Pillar. Together, they triumphed over Qiyu's forces, and the Yellow Emperor's descendants inherited both the mandate of heaven and the power of the dragons. The 9 sons became spiritual guardians of the empire, each assigned to a cardinal direction, an element, and a constellation. Of course, there's no evidence that any of this ever happened, but the legend serves an important function. In a largely agricultural society where floods and droughts could devastate entire provinces, the sky dragons served as a link between heaven and earth. They controlled the weather, bringing life-giving rains and averting natural disasters. Most importantly, however, they represented the emperor. It was he who embodied the dragon's power, and it was he who maintained the cosmic order by keeping the powers of chaos at bay. Dragons also played an important role in Chinese medicine, appearing on many ancient tombs as guardians of the deceased on their journey to the afterlife. However, for ordinary people, dragons were mostly benevolent, bestowing wisdom, good fortune, and immortality upon those worthy enough to encounter them. 4. The Leviathan of the Hebrew Scriptures. Dragons appear frequently in the Hebrew Bible, where they're usually associated with chaos and destruction. In Isaiah 27, we read of a day when the Lord will punish Leviathan, the fleeing serpent, the coiling serpent, and the monster of the sea. Leviathan is described as having 3 parts: the behemoth, which refers to a wild ox and symbolizes land, the tannanim, which refers to dragons and symbolizes the sea, and finally, the behemoth, which symbolizes chaos. In the book of Job, we learn that God made a covenant with day and night. To some scholars, this suggests that the sun and the moon are eternal enemies of darkness, a view that would have been reinforced by Babylonian influence after the destruction of Solomon's temple in 586 BCE. To others, the passage alludes to a time before creation, when the dawn was not yet separated from the darkness. So it was that the gods fought against the Leviathans, primordial giants whose corpses became mountains and whose bones formed the coral reefs. According to the Targum Pseudo-Jonathan, the Midrashic commentary on the Torah, the Leviathan was a huge fish that God created on the 5th day, but it rebelled and ate all of the birds. So God sent the behemoth to slay the Leviathan and feed the birds. And it was only when both monsters had been vanquished that the world was ready for humans. Obviously, this story is deeply symbolic, but it raises an interesting question. Why did ancient Hebrews associate dragons with such overwhelming evil? Well, while there are many theories, it's possible that the Israelites encountered remains of mosasaurs, giant marine reptiles that lived during the Cretaceous period. Mosasaurs are known from numerous fossil finds in North Africa, Western Asia, and Europe. And it's entirely possible that some bones made their way into the hands of early Israelites, inspiring tales of sea monsters that inspired terror in the hearts of men. 3. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, Mesoamerica. The feathered serpent is one of the most popular motifs in Mesoamerican art. Depicted as a combination of a snake and an eagle, this hybrid creature represents the union between two powerful forces of nature, earth, and sky. As a result, the feathered serpent was often associated with rain and fertility, acting as a mediator between the divine and human realms. In fact, many Mesoamerican cultures believed that the feathered serpent was the incarnation of a god, most notably Kukulkan by the Maya, Quetzalcoatl by the Aztecs, and finally Ehecatl by the Nahuas. According to Aztec legend, Quetzalcoatl was born from the blood of a sacrificed god, and so from the moment of his birth, he was destined for greatness. Eventually, he rose to become the most revered member of the pantheon, presiding over the arts of peace, culture, knowledge, and craftsmanship. But Quetzalcoatl wasn't always peaceful. When he returned to his homeland after traveling the world, he found that it had been taken over by his evil brother, Tezcatlipoca. A long war ensued, and Quetzalcoatl nearly perished when his brother dipped him in a magical Chalcute liquihuetal and hurled him into the sea. Fortunately, he was rescued and carried back to land on a raft made of human hearts. Here, he rested for 4 years until his power was restored. But upon his return, he was forced to flee again. This time he walked to the east until he reached the rising sun, where he ascended into the sky and became one with the stars. From up above, he continued to watch over his people, returning every 52 years in the form of a shooting star. This myth may allude to the actual discovery and settlement of Mesoamerica by migrating peoples from Asia. Many scholars believe that this process occurred around 13,000 years ago when humans first crossed the Bering Strait during the last ice age. Others argue for a much later date, like Michael E. Smith, who believes that migration didn't begin until around 2000 BCE. Regardless, it seems clear that the ancient inhabitants of Mesoamerica knew that the earth is round and that it's inhabited on the other side by another race of humans. 2. The Zmei Gorenik, Slavic folklore. In Slavic folklore, dragons are known as Zmei Gorenik or Zmeu. They're typically depicted as 3-headed serpents with 3 pairs of wings and 3 claws on each hand, which means they can breathe fire, fly through the air, and unleash devastating storms. The most famous of these dragons is the Zmei Gorenik, or Gorenik's dragon, who serves as the antagonist in the epic Russian tale of St. George the Victorious. The story begins with the ruler of the city of Lika, who is tormented by a terrible dragon that demands tribute every Friday. When the princess refuses to give up her golden apples, the dragon threatens to destroy the city. So her father makes a deal. He offers his daughter's hand in marriage to whichever hero slays the beast. Soon 3 knights arrive. 2 of them are princes from neighboring lands, but the third is merely a lowly stable hand, though he too wishes to win the princess's hand. Now, to everyone's surprise, it's the stable boy who volunteers to slay the dragon, and so the princess lends him a ring that turns everything it touches to gold. With the ring in hand, the stable boy approaches the beast and gets swallowed whole. He then stabs the dragon with a dagger, and when it dies, the city is freed from its tyranny. For obvious reasons, this story has been interpreted as an allegory for Christ's sacrifice. But it may also represent a genuine memory of a traumatic event, perhaps a volcanic eruption or earthquake that devastated the region. Number 1. Fafnir, the cursed dragon of Norse legend. According to Snorri Sturluson, One of the greatest skalds of all time, dragons appear in the Eddas as reincarnations of dwarves who were transformed into serpent-like creatures through magic. The exact mechanism of this transformation varies from source to source, but the end result is always the same. The dragon becomes cursed and must wander the earth for the rest of eternity. One of the most famous examples is Fafnir, the dragon slain by Sigurd in the Volsunga saga. According to the saga, Fafnir was originally a king named Volsung, who gave his name to the dynasty, but he disappeared after stealing a cauldron of magic from the dwarfs. Sometime later, a new king named Rerir discovered Fafnir in the form of a giant dragon, guarding a pile of treasure in a secret cave. When Rerir attempted to claim the hoard, Fafnir mortally wounded him and assumed the kingship of the realm. Only when Sigurd came along 18 years later did Fafnir's reign of terror finally come to an end. But as the old dragon lay dying, he revealed the location of a second hoard, this one guarded by another monstrous serpent named Fabdakin. When Sigurd approached the cave, Fabdakin warned him that if he stole the treasure, he too would turn into a dragon. Naturally, Sigurd ignored these warnings, grabbed as much treasure as he could carry, and fled the cave. But as soon as he left, Fabdakin followed close behind, determined to reclaim his hoard. And so began one of the greatest adventures in Norse mythology. These legends remind us that myths often begin as memories of creatures too large to forget. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe for more echoes of the past. Thanks for watching.